name's Duncan White. I'm the managing editor of the International Fire and Safety Journal and Fire and Safety Journal Americas. I'm delighted today to have the opportunity to talk to Lance Harry, President and CEO of Fireaway. Lance, good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Duncan. Thanks for having us.
It's always a pleasure. I always look forward to having the opportunity to sit down and learn about what's going on in the industry. So it is a great pleasure for me. We're going to talk about Statex. We're going to talk about the way in which Statex is revolutionizing the fire safety market and the way in which Fireaway and Statex are always looking at new ways of innovation. Lance, to kick off, I think what I find interesting in relation to the Safety in Occupied Spaces is the way in which the American Innovation and Manufacturing Act is playing a part. Can you just explain a little bit more about that to us?
Sure. The AIM Act is a U.S. law that has been enacted several years ago, and it's impacting the fire protection industry because of its mandate to reduce the importation and use of hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs. And as most people know, the use of HFCs in fire protection is pretty predominant on the special hazard side with products like FM200, FE25. And what we're seeing is a phase down of use and importation of these products over the course of about a 10 to 15 year cycle. Right now, we're sort of in the middle of that cycle where use and importation is reduced by about 60% compared to a standard that was established many years ago. And so we're seeing the need for alternatives to these types of agents and these types of systems. And we feel Statex is really an ideal product and system to fit into that alternative for these types of HFC products.
That leads us nicely, and you talked about, quite rightly, the need to reduce these chemicals that we now know are having a huge impact, not only on our environment, but also on ourselves and our families. So the alternatives need to be explored, and with Statex bringing the products to the market in the solutions that you do, you're very much playing a huge part of that. And with that reduction from 60 down to 15, you're going to be in a very nice place from a company perspective.
Yeah, we certainly expect to experience and enjoy some growth based on that, but it's really about the product and the ability for the product to fit a need in the marketplace. And that's what we're intending to do. And we are seeing the start of that, but we certainly expect that to continue.
I don't doubt that at all. Having looked at the product, and I'm a firm believer that you want to buy something that does exactly what it says on the tin. And having had the opportunity to speak to you, Jim, and others from Statex in the past, that's certainly what you get. One of the huge pluses from my perspective, and I think from many others, is the maintenance and the easy installation, or what should I say, the need for a lack of maintenance, if you like, and the easy installation. That you must find that as a huge plus point.
Yeah, the system itself is quite simple. It's easy to install. It does not require any piping. Does not require any pressurized containers. It can be installed directly onto the wall or the ceiling of the protected space. And depending upon the configuration, whether it's electrically activated or thermally activated, it's super simple. There really isn't a lot to it other than attaching the units to the wall. Maintenance-wise, it's very simple. In most cases, it's a visual inspection. The maintenance is mandated generally by NFPA 2010. Even globally, that's the standard by which most folks review maintenance requirements. And that is every 6 months, which is very common, very consistent with other types of systems. But it's simple. It's literally visual inspection, make sure there's no obstructions, make sure that wiring is still attached, things like that. But it's generally much simpler than most of these types of systems used in special hazards.
So with no pipe work to trace back all the way through, the visual inspection becomes very easy.
Absolutely. And, no piping also means it's a much smaller footprint. So the system doesn't take any space within the protected area other than up, along the walls or on the ceiling, which again is very different than what we see with a clean agent type system where you have pressurized cylinders, which are stored in, many times are stored in their own closet or own room because of the size of the number of cylinders required. So it's a significant advantage in terms of the system and how it's installed and the maintenance required.
And the whole issue that pressurized containers bring with it by not having to deal with those alternative rooms to put the containers in, and making sure that they're protected is again another huge plus point for the Statex system.
Yeah, absolutely. In most cases, we've seen those types of systems require storage of the containers, particularly inert gases. But even with pressurized chemical systems like FM200, like a Novec 1230 or FK 5112, it does require a fair amount of footprint to protect the space. And you save that with Statex. You just don't need that type of space. And a lot of people are not comfortable with dealing with pressurized cylinders. It does present an additional hazard within the space. You've got, a lot of times 500 psi. In the case of inert gases, you could have up to 1800 or 2000 psi cylinders. And just companies aren't necessarily or generally super excited about dealing with those types of products.
Again, another plus point for Statex there. One thing that I know we've talked about ourselves, and I was hugely interested in, and I'd like to record this as part of today, is the whole buoyancy of the aerosol and the ability of it to stay buoyant within the protected space. Can you explain, hopefully better than I could, how that is effective?
Sure. The aerosol, when it discharges, is really made up of very fine particulate matter. And in that way, it tends to stay buoyant because it floats on the common air movement within the space. And so after a discharge, it really tends to just move around the space and stay at a density required to either extinguish or suppress the fire that's going on within the space. What we see in chemical systems is while they do discharge and create a homogeneous mixture within the space, they are heavier than air and tend to sink quite quickly. Hold times can be an issue with clean agent systems, particularly if you have a relatively leaky environment. And we've seen from many contractors around the world where it's a challenge to seal these rooms and make sure chemical systems, gaseous systems can maintain the concentration required. With aerosol systems and Statex in particular, it's not quite as challenging. Certainly, you do need to maintain the aerosol density within the space, but the level of rework and potential renovation that has to go on to actually seal the space is, we've seen in our experience, significantly less in an aerosol type of system.
Excellent. And as you say, it creates less of an issue for the end user. It provides more of an opportunity for it to do its job. We're hearing a lot now about the whole issue of lithium-ion batteries, thermal runaway, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about Statex and its ability to mitigate that risk of thermal runaway?
Yeah, the ESS application is certainly a very active one within our industry. The ESS industry is growing very rapidly. I think everyone involved understands there's some risk associated with those types of batteries and the hazards associated with them. We've seen that occur both on large scale and small scale. Everyone has probably seen the videos on YouTube of computer laptop batteries spontaneously combusting. What we've seen with Statex is the ability for the aerosol, when applied at the appropriate design densities, to really mitigate that risk of thermal runaway propagation. And what that means is, within an individual cell or even module of a larger ESS installation, when those units go into thermal runaway, it's very difficult to stop that. In fact, it's nearly impossible. And so the goal of almost all fire protection approaches, when you have lithium ion cells or batteries entering thermal runaway, is to just limit that as much as possible. So keep it from moving to the next cell or to the next module or to the next rack and becoming, a massive, conflagration issue. And so we've seen in multiple tests with multiple customers, through different regulatory requirements and certification activities, we've seen that Statix does effectively mitigate that risk of propagating from cell to cell or module to module. Again, it won't stop it from happening, but the best we can do is limit that and give responders and fire services more time and more options to figure out what they want to do with whatever event is occurring. And again, we've seen quite a bit of success in the ability to mitigate that thermal runaway propagation.
That's fantastic, and quite rightly, giving our first responders more time to put in place their control measures is vitally important. Lance, it would be remiss of me while I've got you to myself to say, what can we look forward to coming out of Statix in the next 6 to 12 months? I'm not asking you to give away any trade secrets, but is there any little things that we can look out for?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that the opportunities and the runway for Statix and Fireaway in general is quite large. Most of our focus from a product development standpoint is on acceptance and certifications. So we will see here in the next 6 to 12 months a number of different certifications that we've been pursuing through testing. And it's important because, as you know, and our industry understands, every individual country and region has a different requirement for approvals and certifications. And so we continually look to improve those areas, add to the list of certifications that we have, and we will see some of that here in the coming months. And I think the product as it is quite effective. We are always looking for ways to improve, but we think that our biggest growth opportunity is really to improve the acceptance and those certifications and approvals globally. And we have been working hard to get there, and we'll see the fruit of that labor here shortly.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I always take the opportunity when I can to remind people that certification is what gives you that peace of mind. As an end user, you need to ensure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that the product that says it's certified actually is. To go to the testing house and confirm that, because there are too many unscrupulous people out there that are saying that they've got the required certification, and unfortunately, procurers are taking their word for it. And then the first they realise that there's an issue is when the product doesn't work. So, a plea from me: do your homework when you're doing your procuring, because companies like Statix spend an awful lot of money getting the right approvals so that you can have that peace of mind. So make sure you spend a few minutes to do your due diligence. Lance, my friend, it's been a huge honor and a huge pleasure, as always, to spend some time with you. I know that you're a busy man. Please pass on my best regards to all your team over there, and I look forward to catching you in person very soon.
Sounds great. Thank you for the time, Duncan. We really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. I'm Duncan White. I'm the managing editor of the International Fire and Safety Journal, and I've had the pleasure of speaking to Lance Harry, President and CEO of Fireaway.